Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, I'm going to do a head-to-head comparison between the Ardbeg Uigeadail and the Bunnahabhain Toiteach. Don't hold me to that being the correct pronunciation. It looks like Toiteach, but as far as I can tell, it's Toiteach. Of course, got a bunch of people in the comment section trying to correct me on my pronunciation. If they wanted me to correct it, pronounce it correctly, they wouldn't put it in Gaelic. So why do they label their bottles in Gaelic? Well, there's a long political story behind that. Long story short, occupation of Scotland by their southern neighbors. One of the ways in which you take dominion over another culture is to take away their holidays, take away their clothes. I don't mean like they're naked, but their style of clothing or the culture, take away their language, the food, the music, anything that makes them distinctively as to what they are. This is a global phenomenon. It's happened in a lot of different cultures, a lot of different places for thousands of years. So one of the ways in which you form a resistance against the occupying force is you hold on to your traditions. You hold on to your language. So if you can take over people and force them to speak a different language, you send perhaps teachers into the school systems, you can and punish them when they speak Gaelic, then you can sort of subdue them. Of course, there are other things you can do in terms of interbreeding and stuff like that to screw up their family heritage. You want to mess up their clans, their clan names, their identity, because tied to inheritance, and a clan is a piece of land. So that's another thing you do, is you intermingle with their families and break up the families, kill off the husbands oftentimes, and I'm sorry giving you a sad story, but this is the way it goes. And so as a form of resistance, Scotland, and particularly these distilleries, are maintaining the Gaelic language. If you go to Scotland, you leave Glasgow or Edinburgh, and you get out into the countryside, get on a ferry, you'll start running into more and more Gaelic. The safety warning on a ferry will be given to you in English and will be given into Gaelic. And yet, if you're going to a pub or so forth and you listen, you don't hear people speaking in Gaelic. There's a BBC channel, radio and television, dedicated to Gaelic. So then why do they do it? To hold on to these traditions and their identity as a form of resistance. All right, so long story story there. Wasn't planning on that, but that's how that goes. So Uigeadail is the water source for Loch Uigeadail is the water source for Ardbeg, and Toiteach is Gaelic for peated to. Now, generally speaking, all of Ardbeg's bottles are peated, heavily peated, 55 ppm, natural filter, natural color. Most of Bunnahabhain is non-peated, with the exception of, in terms of the core range, the Toiteach. They do have these special releases called Monya, which are absolutely fantastic, that are also peated. That just means peat, but Toiteach means smoky too. So the core range of Bunnahabhain, the only one that's peated, the smoky, is the Toiteach. So we have two whiskeys that are non-age statement. Both are bourbon and sherry casks. Both, I would say, fairly heavily peated. I don't know what the ppms are, at least originally, for the Toiteach. The Ardbeg is at 54.2% alcohol by volume, and the Bunnahabhain is at 46.3. Seems to be a magical number for Bunnahabhain. Now, while I've been doing all this talking, which I've been doing on purpose, is to let these whiskeys breathe. Peated whiskeys need to breathe. Not only in terms of breathe in terms of the bottle, but when you pour them into glass. Now, this is a more recent opening of Uigeadail. I've gone through a couple before. This one's only down to here, so I'm still working on getting this one to open up. The Toiteach is about right here, and it was opened up quite a while back. So visually, they have that sort of golden copper color, there's the Uigeadail there for you, bright and shiny, fairly clear. I would say the Toiteach is slightly darker with a little bit more copper color. On the nose, and I can approach this like a hot cup of coffee because this is quite a high ABV. No huge inhales, just a slight whiff. Man, I love Ardbeg. The smoke is interwoven with lemon and lime. There's a slight nuttiness there. Chocolate covered raisins. Caramel, vanilla. That's something I like to describe as a slight sort of a wet mud character. The Toiteach. The Toiteach, it seems the sherry cask and the peat is much more sort of bound together, and it's a tighter nose. It's a darker, richer peat character. Dark chocolate, whereas this might be more milk chocolate covered raisins. Get a little more anise or licorice on this. It's not as expressive out of the glass as the Uigeadail is. Of course, the Uigeadail, higher ABV, that may be helping that as well. It also has a slight nuttiness. It also has that chocolate covered raisin, but it's almost as if this is milk chocolate covered raisins. This is dark chocolate covered raisins. There's a slight, it's very faint, almost like a burnt rubber character. If I was doing this completely blind, I might be tempted to think that the Toiteach maybe had a little bit of PX in it because it's that dark and that rich. Hints of spice. Yep. The Ardbeg has a little bit more spice to it. So this seems denser. This seems more expressive. So this one's a little more closed, even though it's been open a lot longer than the Uigeadail. On the palate, now you would think because this is a lower ABV, I might start with that one, but I'm not. I'm going to start with the Uigeadail because I tasted these before doing this video, and this is so dark, it's sort of dominating. It's just that dark richness. It does have that tingle of the high ABV combined with a little bit of spice. It intensifies the spice. Sweet up front, very rich. That lemon and lime character really flows through there. Chocolate covered raisins, caramel, vanilla. There's more spice on the back end than when I recall from previous tasting of Uigeadail, but it could be just me. Real nice development, nice round mouth coating feel. A little bit of water. Bunnahabhain Toiteach, Slàinte. I don't know how else to express this other than with my hands. The Uigeadail is more expressive. It has some more vibrancy to it. It speaks more to you. The Toiteach is more, it's tighter. It's more, the peat smoke is more, and the sherry cask is more bound together, not seeming to allow much in between those two. It's more, in comparison to the Ardbeg, up front, in the middle, and to the finish. A little bit more of the same in comparison to the nice transitions of the Uigeadail. More approachable, though, because it doesn't have the super high ABV. That being said, the Uigeadail isn't so high that you feel like you just have to put water into it. But you can. Well, both of these are absolutely fantastic. I'm liking the Toiteach Gha more than I had before. I think when it had been more recently opened, the length of finish wasn't all of that. It has a much longer finish now. Again, this is something I talk about a lot on my channel, is aeration, particularly with peated whiskeys. Let them breathe in the glass, let them breathe in the bottle. Don't judge a bottle by neck pour. Well, I'm going to give these in terms of scores. I'm going to go solid 92 with the Uigeadail, and I'll go solid 90 with the Toiteach Gha. $8 difference. Now, of course, prices vary all over the place depending on where you live. Maybe where you live, you can't even get the Toiteach Gha. Which would I rather have on a blind taste? The Ardbeg. It's easier to identify, and when you think peat, generally you tend to think Islay, and if you think outside of Islay, you might think of Leitch, or you think of Highland Park, obviously, up there in Orkney, or Talisker with that peppery character on the back end of it. That's a subtle peat. But in terms of big and peaty and rich, you think of Islay. But because Bunnahabhain does so little peat, your brain isn't necessarily going to go, that's Bunnahabhain, unless you've had a lot of experience and a lot of interaction with Toiteach Gha. Now, I said before, Bunnahabhain also does the Monya cask. You think both being peated, they'd have a lot more in common. I don't find them to be all that similar. My favorite, probably one of my favorite whiskeys of all time, was the Bunnahabhain Monya Oloroso. Absolutely superb, one of the best whiskeys I've ever had. And yet, this Toiteach Gha is nothing like it. I think it's because of the density and the concentration of the character of the peat. But still, an absolutely fantastic whiskey if you're patient with it and let it breathe. All right, that's it for this video. If you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you've not yet subscribed, if you like watching my videos, would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified for when I go live or post in the video. And until next time, Slàinte mhath. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.